kind of switching back to kind of your role and what your day looks like. Head coaches have a million things on their plate, from outside factors, from obviously the team and what's actually important now, future teams and recruiting, donors, everything. How do you decide what's important now? Because I would imagine you have a schedule every day, and there are probably a lot of days by 9:30 in the morning that schedule is blown to bits, right? Because things happen, things come up. How do you decide what's important now and what you need to focus on to make sure that you're doing what's best for the program?
It's a constant battle, I think, for all of us, right? Number one, my family's always going to come first. When you talk about building out a program, if we're saying that player development is number one, which it is, again, not instead of winning, that's our path to winning, then we also understand, like, if I'm doing something and one of the boys comes in and say, Coach, can I talk? That becomes the number one. One of the things that I constantly, you constantly have in my head, I don't know if you've ever read 7 Habits of Highly Effective People, right? But your grid, like, what is our urgent and important? Like, making sure you're saying that. It's really hard. Sometimes the urgent can overwhelm the important, and you want to make sure that you're taking the important over the urgent. But that's a constant thing, a constant battle. And what's hard is, and what's really fun, I think, from a head coaching standpoint, is that you're the balance of, like you said, current team and future team. I get to sometimes be looking 3, 5, 7 years down the road and getting us ready for that, while also making sure we're doing what we need to do every day to get ready here. It's awesome when I have a staff here and I get to work with this group, like, that I get to work with every day, and they'll hold me accountable. Like, hey, man, I have no problem. They need to come in sometimes. Like, do we need to be working on? Is that something is that important right now? Awesome. Ask me. Call me out on that. So that thing that you that's it's one of the number one most important things, right? So trying to be intentional about where you're spending your time. And I wasn't great at this. This is, I spent a lot of, start of my career, really 11 of my first 13 years with one full-time assistant and then I had a second full-time assistant. Now we have a staff meeting this morning, and this goes back to Pat Kraft and the investment, but we have a full staff every other Wednesday, where we also bring in marketing and academics and nutrition and mental performance. And you pick up your head, there's 20 people in the room that are all looking at, with 20 people in the room, all looking at the growth of the program and the development of the boys, right? So how do you make sure that we are all on the same page? And then spending my time literally at night, in the morning, like before I go to bed, and the first thing I do when I wake up is look at my calendar. What are the meetings I have to be prepared for? What are the meetings that I'm going into? And then all right, is this in line with what it is we want to do? And am I forgetting something? Because it can be, if you're not careful, you're running out to practice and you're what are we doing today?
Right.
You know what I mean? And, and it also goes back to prep. We spend a ton of time going into the fall. We spent, not a full week, but a large part of a week really planning out our fall, going back over the spring and what we decided, in our after action review, what are the things we want to do better, and what you look at the end of last fall, what did we like or not like about last fall? How do we apply all that? Right. So make sure the fall is planned out, and then we're working within that framework.
I want to give you a chance real quick. You kind of mentioned it. I always like to give head coaches the opportunity to talk about how great your staff is. We've gotten to spend the last 2 days with your staff. A lot of people on your staff, they are awesome people, first and foremost, and getting to talk to them about baseball and kind of how they do their jobs has been incredible. How important is that for you and the support that it gives you, and how important is it for the program in general?
Number one for me, I want to have and it comes from the investment, like we talked about, from Pat Kraft and Vinny James. But when you put together the staff, you want to have the ability to have good men around these boys as they're growing into men. So every one of these, the coaches on the staff, and then the people around us in general, are great people. Having in this case, men, not that, someday there could be a woman coaching on the staff, but in this case, men of integrity, high character, tremendous hard workers. They're also, their baseball knowledge is unbelievable. It's also a group. I mean, if you go through Pooch and I've been close, I've known Pooch for 15 years. Mock, I recruited him. I knew him since he was 15 years old. Will Jouse, I've known almost since he was born. Wheels, I've known 20 years. So we've all known each other for so long. They're great people. They're people that you want to hang out with and have a beer with, and they're people that you want, in your proverbial foxhole when you're trying to help kids get better and win baseball games and everything. And I'm tremendously, tremendously lucky that I can sit in that room. There's a genuine respect. There's a genuine caring. Jake Stone, who you got a chance to spend a little time with. Jake was here. I met him when I took the job and immediately was like, yes, this is a person that you want to be around every day, and two, his ability to help us build out a player development. And then we just added, Ford, who's a tremendous addition to the staff. He's tremendously smart. And, he's the guy that I've known the least from amount of time, but fit in right away. And I leaned very heavily on Will when we hired him. But when you have a group of guys you can sit around, you can enjoy being around, we can argue, which I said it in a meeting today that, silence I take as agreement. If we throw something out there and nobody says anything, I just assume we all agree. I love when we get in legit arguments, right? And, we can, whether you're talking about a player, no, I want this guy, I want this, or, hey, I want to do this, because we all know on that staff, we disagree. There's so much respect that you and I might agree, and I might be like, all right, you know what? I'm sorry, you and I might disagree, and I might be like, yeah, we're going with it. Go ahead, go. Once we leave the room, here we go, man. We're on the same page.
Want to be respectful of your time. I really appreciate you sitting down. I have one last question. I like to ask this question to all the coaches we get to sit down with. If I were to fast forward 5 years into the future, what do you want this program to look like, and what do you want people to be saying?
What people are saying, we have no control over. And that's not something I worry about, because, again, it's just outside your control. What do I want it to look like? We want it to be something that we talked about these pillars, right? We talked about the culture. We talked about humility, hard work. One of our other pillars is energy, execution, and edge. Another one of our pillars is gratitude and grit. The overwhelming goal that we talk about here is success with honor. So what do I want the program to look like in 5 years? I believe we will have hosted regionals here. I believe we will have had a chance to go to the College World Series here. And I would like our alumni, fans, the people in town, the people that come out to follow the program, to be tremendously proud that we're having a ton of success in the field. We're winning baseball games. We've got draft picks coming out of here. Potentially in 5 years, maybe another big leaguer, I should say. But on top of that, they're just really good kids that represent Penn State well, represent the community well, represent the former players well. People that you like rooting for because they play really, really hard and they win baseball games, but they're good people.
Coach, this has been incredible. Thank you so much for the time.
Thanks for coming out. Appreciate it.